Hey, everybody. Welcome to episode 134 of WP Roundtable. I am Kyle, and I'm here in Jackson, Michigan, doing WordPress stuff, and thrilled to be talking with my friend Chris Wiegman down in Florida. How you doing this evening, Chris?
Doing good, Kyle. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming and joining me on this fine day. All right. So we've got a lot to talk about, and I'm pretty excited about our discussion. You and I got acquainted probably getting close to a year ago. Both go to our fair share of WordCamps. I've seen you all over the place for some years and followed your incredible work. So it's a thrill for me to get a chance to sit and talk with you for an extended period of time, get to know you a little bit better.
Fair enough.
So before we dive into your background and learn a lot about what you do, let's jump into our quick picks of the week real fast. I want to share a couple things that I came across. One, HeroPress has 100 essays, and they just hit a big milestone. So Topher wrote on the HeroPress.com blog. That's somewhat interesting recap with some numbers, and I thought it was pretty cool. And congrats to them for sticking to it and getting 100 different people to write an essay for the HeroPress blog. That's pretty cool. And it's pretty challenging. I was one of those 100 people. Did you write an essay for the site, Chris?
I haven't. They've asked my wife to, and she's planning on it at some point here, but I have not.
That'd be pretty cool. Yeah, it's a great site, and just so many of the essays are just incredible, and it's impressive that Topher was able to get 100 different people to just write their story. So that's pretty cool. And in other news, I saw just today that Clef is shut down. What do you think about that, man?
Hadn't heard that one yet. That's wow. That's kind of interesting. I hadn't seen anything from them in a while, so I guess it's not. I don't mean this badly, but it's not surprising. But that is interesting.
Yeah, I know. I mean, they were. There's a lot of buzz about them when I first heard about them, and everybody was talking. A lot of my friends still have Clef installed on their blogs, and I got to know Jesse. Jesse was actually the first guest we ever had on this show.
Wow.
Getting close to 3 years ago. So
I talked with them a lot when I was doing the security plugin.
Yeah.
Been looking for two-factor solutions back, well, that was 3 or 4 years ago. But that's interesting. I'm sorry to hear that. They're good people. Yeah.
It's a very succinct blog post that they've got on their corporate blog, and it just says they're joining another team or something with more information to follow. That's pretty cool. And also check out my other podcasts, getoptionspodcast.com. My buddy Adam and I have started a somewhat semi-satirical advice podcast show relating to people's lives with WordPress. And we're trying to, as we do, think outside the box, push the boundaries a little bit, and probably annoy some people. So check it out.
I need to check that one out.
Yeah, it's pretty short. I'm always interested in input and better questions for us to answer on the show. Chris, do you have anything to share?
WordPress 4.7.3 came out today. Big security patch. So make sure you update on that one. The other one that I thought was pretty cool to see this last week was WordCamp Austin's coming back. I moved to Florida from Austin. So WordCamp Austin, the last one was the last year I lived in Austin. So it's pretty cool to see. I think Ryan Hoover is leading up the charge for that one. So I'm really glad to see that coming back for October.
Yeah, that's great news. No kidding. I didn't know about that. Do you know any date range?
October 21st to the 20s of October. I don't want to say too specifically because off the top of my head, I do not remember.
Hey, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Good stuff. It's going to be 1 week after our big WordCamp up here, WordCamp Ann Arbor, 13th and 14th.
Aha.
Yeah, that's the big one up in our state, which I'm leading this year for the second time.
Very cool. That's what I've been wanting to get up to for a while as well. A good friend of mine, Deborah Edwards Arano, is big with that one.
Yep. Deborah's great. She's always there. So let's talk about your background a little bit, Chris. We want to learn about you, where you're from, and all the things that you've done. If you don't mind, we could start a little bit before you got into doing web development and working with WordPress and all that stuff. In the early stages of your career, when it was just getting started and you had big ambitions about your future. Tell us a little bit about what it was you envisioned your career turning into and how you got the ball rolling.
The first time playing music, the second career, I became an airline captain. Then when that all decided, when I realized that neither of those are going to pay the bills, I turned to web development. No, but well, kind of, but not quite as much of a sad story as that. No, I mean, before I got really into this, I was flying for a living. In fact, it was my flight school. I was fixing computers. I was the student worker fixing computers. And when my first day as a professional pilot was 9/11, and at the time of the second recession, it was they called back and said, "Hey, do you want that job full time? We can't offer you a lot of money, but you can get any degree you want." I'm like, this sounds like a great opportunity for a career change. So I jumped on that.
That's amazing.
A little bit unusual path, I guess, but hey, it worked.
Well, I've interviewed enough people in the show to learn that the concept of a usual path isn't really something that holds up too much. That's not to say your story isn't quite unique, as it is. But we all have our own path.
Exactly. But
so that's interesting. You started with music. Tell me a little bit about that.
I want to be a trumpet player of some sort for the longest time, and that wasn't going to pay any bills. I debated it, majoring in it the first time in college, but I just never took that route. Got into IT a little bit back with Y2K and made a little bit of money off of it then. But no, then when my son was born, I realized I hated fixing computers. So I jumped into flying, which was a lot of fun for a few years. Got to see a lot of places. Probably the only airline captain you'll ever meet that'll tell you I sat through a 6.7 earthquake in an airplane. We hadn't taken off yet. It was 2 miles from us. So on the big island of Hawaii. So my luck wasn't really good there either. But no, it was fun. I mean, it was a great career. And then I had a little bit of IT stuff to fall back on. So it kind of worked. It kind of bounced in and out of both of them quite a bit, very easily.
Yeah. Wow. That's pretty cool. So do you still have any kind of pilot's license?
I still keep my flight instructor current, and I've actually been talking with a local airport about 10 miles south of us. I've been jumping out of their airplanes about trying to get to fly jumpers or take a student or something like that on the weekends.
Hey, what was your second career? Now it's becoming somewhat of a hobby?
Yeah, pretty much. It's the fun part of flying. Sitting up in the front of the jets, to me, I was just bored. Yeah, because other than the view out the window, I'm one of those people. I'm sitting here now. I've got a bottle of cap in one hand and a bottle of water in the other. I always have to be doing something. So I was frankly bored with it. And the fun part of flying was teaching. When you're up in front of a jet, somebody always wants to be home. Somebody hates their life. It's for a living. How happy is anybody you know when they go through an airport? Nobody says, I want to be here in this airport. Nobody says that. So now when I fly, like if you always wanted to fly, we can go up and you can learn how to fly. I can teach you. Both of us want to be there. There's no autopilot. You can actually control the airplane, so on and so forth. That's the fun stuff.
Wow. Man, that's amazing.
Yeah, that's most definitely the fun stuff.
Interesting. I guess I'd never thought too much about it, but when you describe it, I could definitely see that, someone who needs to keep busy, not finding that to be very fulfilling once you're up. But
the views are great. Other than that, I do miss the office view. I'll say out my window here does not quite compare. Other than that.
Man, up in the cockpit, you don't have those tiny little excuses for windows that we have in the back.
That is for certain.
Yeah. Man. And I love the view. I always end up with neck pain after every trip because I can't stop, looking as a tall guy, down like this to try and peek out the window.
It's funny nowadays. I always request an aisle seat because I think the windows maybe it is because the windows are too small and it's just disappointing not sitting up front. I know what you mean.
Yeah. So how'd you make the transition into web development? Unpack that just a little bit. You said when you came around, you wanted to do something different, or you didn't like fixing computers. So
when the last recession hit, and actually before that, because there's student work, I'd gotten into like developing their web page and stuff. I had built a CMS for them and all that stuff, just kind of more hobby. And when the last recession hit, it was like, well, I mean, this isn't paying anything. So it was when the university called about the same time I was getting class dates for airlines and saying, hey, do you want your old job full time? We can help you transition, yada, yada. And I'm like, well, this sounds pretty cool. And the job was technically to keep their IT department. I was director of IT. I did everything from, we had like 400 students and faculty, a bunch of servers. I maintained the flight simulators, like the big Frasca flight simulators. I even had to fly airplanes for maintenance. Do maintenance checks on airplanes. So it was quite the encompassing job. But the degree I picked, because they didn't really have an IT or a web development degree, so I decided I'd go back for CS, computer science, get a master's in computer science. And I needed side projects, and I did like working on the website. So I basically put all my time into developing websites. Let student workers keep, just do the regular computer maintenance, because a lot of IT students wanted to do that. And it worked out pretty darn well for me. Kind of just, what's the word I'm looking for? Snowballed from there.
Yeah. And so you bumped into WordPress along the way at some point?
It was I was doing the university sites. The primary site, this was before WordPress, like 2.7, like this is circa 09 or so. I had decided I wasn't going to keep rewriting their CMS. So I looked at WordPress and Drupal. And at the time we picked Drupal just because it was a little more mature in that era. And then the main website was neat, but we realized we needed, student groups need websites. Some classes need websites. Faculty would like their own sites. So I got into WordPress based on when multi-site became big.
Yeah,
all that kind of stuff.
Right. So you were using WordPress MU and the whole setup. And I mean, how big was it for you when that became a core feature? Was that cool?
It was cool. I mean, it really wasn't a big deal. You update one or you update the other. The forks were fairly well maintained, so it wasn't like going from Drupal to WordPress by any stretch. It wasn't. A little bit of work, but it was, I didn't have to rewrite plugins or anything like that. For the most part, it was a pretty smooth transition, I thought, at the time. Yeah. Just what I remember. I don't remember pulling my hair out over that one. So,
yeah, we don't really have anything that's like that these days that I'm aware of, where people are using forks. It's, I mean, that was a thing back then. There were some, but there's not really anything else that I can think of. That's another example.
Not a core. I still see on big sites people hacking a lot of plugins and stuff like that, but not so much core.
Yeah.
Things like BuddyPress or just various little plugins I see all the time.
Sure.
Which I don't know. I tend to think that there's probably better ways than some of the ones I see to do it, but it still happens.
Yeah. Back then, did you see were you a fan, or is it the best tool of the time? And did you see WordPress go into where it's gone at all?
Yeah, in retrospect, in some ways I think I did, because the security plugin, I built Better WP Security, which became iTheme Security when I sold it and all that. And I did that, and I stayed with WordPress because you couldn't do that type of development with product that side with Drupal or Joomla or anything else like that. It's just, and you still can't really. Drupal, every time they come out with a new version, or a new major version, it's a complete rewrite of everything.
Right.
And WordPress, I have plugins I haven't touched in 6 years that still run. So that makes it, if I had thought about it in the terms of how big is WordPress going to be, yeah, it would make sense now looking back that that's kind of why I picked it, because WordPress had that future. But it wasn't really, I mean, to me, I like WordPress. I enjoy the community. I enjoy working with it. But a tool is still a tool, and I'm still picking the best tool for the job, if that makes sense.
Sure. So I don't know too much about the detailed history before I became a user of Better WP Security, which was a long time ago. So tell me a little bit about its inception and what, kind of your initial plan was it was with this plugin.
Sure. Working for the university, I was basically at that point kind of putting almost probably 80 to 90% of my time into their websites. And it was becoming very political on campus. And there were a lot of sites getting hacked. So we, for political reasons, had to be extra careful that we wouldn't be. hacked. And I was, I think I was at one point I was running like 20 different security plugins and getting pissed off because there'd be one wouldn't do this, or one would break that, or how that can get. You can still get that if you want to go that route. So I started putting them all together, all the features I like together, and adding features. The away mode feature was something, it basically shuts off the dashboard during specified hours. So we have to have things like students posting about parties late at night on the site. So outside of business hours, we'd shut down those ability, just various features like that. It was very organically built around the job I had at that time.
Fascinating. And you decided to open source it and put it on .org and release this tool that you were using that just made your life a lot easier, like a one plugin that did everything you need. And then it grew.
Yeah, it just kind of took off. I mean, truth be told, I did most of the development on that on my time. So that's why it started out with .org, because it was as much about getting the right tool in place as I needed something for my resume. I was a CS student. Excuse me. And, I'm not going to put my homework projects out. That looks pretty lame, right? So when I finished my degree, it'd be nice if I had something out there. So I put it in the .org repo and all that. And I put a couple other little ones in there at the time. And when I moved to Austin, it suddenly just kind of security became important. And it just kind of took on a life of its own. It just kind of kept growing and growing. I mean, donations alone, the last year I had it, did like $25,000 with just that little, if you like this, give me a few dollars.
Yeah.
So it won gangbusters.
Yeah.
Which is part of why I sold it though too. I mean, in the end, it was like, well, this was supposed to be a resume piece. This was supposed to be a side project. Yeah. Do I really want to do a security plugin full time? It didn't seem like something I really wanted to do full time on my own. I didn't want my own company for that. So
right.
Found a good partner for it.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was, a couple of years ago, 2014, 2013.
December 2013. So it's just over 3 years ago now. I had to think about that. I'm kind of.
Yeah. So at that time, you got a conversation going with iThemes and joined their team. What was that process like?
They made it nice and simple. It fulfilled the goals, I think, on both sides for what they were looking for with the new product, for what I was looking for. They actually were one of a couple buyers that I had been talking to at the time.
Really?
But what they had just kind of fit. They had Backup Buddy, and their sync dashboard came out about that time. And
right.
Just very complementary type products. So it just worked out really well. It was a little unique, being everything they had was homegrown. So here I come. Not only am I one of their only remote people, but that company comes from history outside of WordPress. Most of the people that they kind of know each other from other places. So I'm one of the few that's not from that. I'm one of the few that's remote, and I'm the only one in there with my own product trying to integrate it. So it was a little interesting. But
I can imagine.
I looked at it as I was trying to get out of the security plugin, so it worked. And when that time was passed, it was time to move on. That's what I did.
Wow. What do you think about its life since then? Got any surprises? Anything that you're really excited about or happy with?
I'm glad to see they're putting time into it. I wasn't really sure what if they, sometimes when you do that and you're, I brought the plugin in and I was very removed from like the core of the company just by circumstances. Yeah. So when I left, I didn't know what was going to happen. So I'm glad to see it's still there. It's still growing. It's still got a life of its own. And they're putting some real resources into it. I wouldn't have necessarily blamed them if they hadn't, if they had just kind of said and let it, kind of let it fall on the wayside that they did. In fact, Aaron Campbell, who's now the security czar for
GoDaddy.
For Core and GoDaddy, before he went to GoDaddy, him and Chris Jean both were pretty much hacking away at it for quite some time. So I'm sure it actually works now, at least a lot better than when I had it. But
well, it was really the go-to for quite a while, and had quite an incredible user base, and still does to this day. So yeah. It's a truly lasting mark that you've left, like a true contribution to the community.
Thank you. I like to think so. I mean, it was always such an interesting plugin, because my idea was never, you can't put a firewall within something. So it was never meant to be a firewall. It was never meant to be, it's not going to block. I didn't want to sell it as we're going to block all these attacks because you can't at that level. So the idea was to enforce all these best practices and all that kind of stuff. So going through that and all that marketing and the feedback over the years, it's always been so interesting to hear. But I think it's because of that type of marketing, that direction it took. It's done pretty well.
Yeah, I can imagine. I would be super curious to understand what like these misconceptions people had, or the people looking for this solution or encountering this solution and just maybe misunderstanding the role it plays or the features it's going to implement and so forth. Like I'm just sure that there's so much that you encountered that would be amusing or fascinating.
Musings tends to make for some amusing WordCamp stories, that's for certain. When I first met Jeffro from WP Tavern, I had known him online for a while, but this was after our 4.0 release, which was the first big release we did with iThemes. It was the first time I'd ever used like a really big beta program. We had like 600 actual beta testers and stuff like that. So I had rewritten the thing twice before that. No real problems. So then we released 4.0, and we had a problem with one of the features. It was a pretty bad bug. So, fast forward a couple of weeks later, WordCamp Miami, of all places. But this guy walks up to me. I was talking with a bunch of the guys from, who was it, X Team maybe or something like that. This guy walks up to me and goes, "So you're that asshole who broke out all those websites?" And I'm like, "Wait, what?
Oh, man.
Who are you?"
Jeez.
That was sorry, friendly show, but that was my intro. I mean, based on some of that, it's just funny some of the stories and people that thing's taken me to and met over the years. Pretty cool stuff.
Wow.
It's funny. Anybody I say that to about Jeffro now kind of goes, "Oh yeah, that's Chandler." Which
yeah.
And I'm still pretty good friends with the guy, so I get it. But at the time, it was like, wait, what?
Yeah. I love the guy too, but I'm not perplexed or shocked by your story, I wouldn't say.
In fact, last time I think I had sat down with you was at the Berghoff restaurant in Chicago, which I had planned because I wanted to make sure Chandler got to see it because of all his food blogging and
right.
stuff.
Yep.
I grew up at that restaurant, so.
Yeah. So you've gotten to move around. You've lived in Austin. You live in Florida now. Where have you been?
Kind of grew up mostly in Chicago, Southern Illinois for college. Lived in Maui for a little while. Did the airline stuff out there.
Wow.
Austin. Actually lived near Detroit. I want to say it was Northfield or something for a few months.
Northville,
right at the northwest side of the city there.
Yeah.
But that was like 98 maybe, so it's been a while, and it wasn't long enough to really make a big difference. But
that's funny.
I don't know. I'm 38 now, and I think I've had more state driver's licenses than I've had cars at this point. Not sure that's a good thing or a bad thing.
Unique, for sure. So you were a part of the iThemes team. They brought you on with the product. You had plans. They had plans. And eventually, you moved on to other things. Tell us about that transition and where you went.
The thing with the iThemes team is it was, when I sold the plugin, it wasn't because I wanted to do it full time. I didn't want to make the business out of it. And toward the end there, I realized I kind of forgotten, when I built it very organically with a set of features that I needed. And I was starting to put features into it that I didn't have any idea of the use case for, nor was I able to see the use case anymore. I kind of lost touch with why I was doing any of it. So I jumped over to 10up and was there for almost a year and a half building sites and trying to just remember why people do this stuff. Why bother with WordPress? Why bother with the web type attitude? I had truthfully I had focused so heavily on one little aspect, the security plugin, for so long that I had completely forgotten the rest of that why question. Okay, so what are you protecting? I don't know anymore.
That's amazing.
But yeah, it was I was there up till last September then at 10up.
Yeah. So that I could totally see how just due to the scale that plugin got to, it could be so consuming, and you could get to a point where you say, like, I need to get back into the real world of building sites and working on these projects, and what's going on. It's just so buried in this security stuff. That's pretty amazing. So you did a year and a half at the agency at 10 Up, and then you moved to University of Florida.
Yep, University of Florida got me last September, and they had been trying to talk me into it for a little while. So,
Really?
but I had spent a lot of time in higher ed. Higher ed was the first conferences I ever spoke at. I built that for higher ed, the security plugin I built for Southern Illinois, when I was at Southern Illinois University, and to make my life easier there. Then when I moved to Texas, I took a university job at St. Edward's University, and that's why we moved to Texas. So going back was kind of a natural fit. Jeff Stevens is one of the guys over at UF, so the chance to work with him was like, oh, heck yeah, totally. I mean, the guy's awesome. So I jumped at that. Once it came around, I kind of come full circle. Not to mention, I mean, the university thing, I love the mission. The quality of life, I can't deny the benefits are better. It pays a lot less than what an agency pays, but the benefits make up for it. So there's time off. I can get back into flying a little bit on the side again without worrying about time or what's going on this weekend, that type of thing.
Yeah.
Like I said, the mission's awesome. And they've been real great with me too, because I live in Sarasota, Florida, which is about an hour south of Tampa. Gainesville, I work actually for UF Health. It's the Shands Hospital in Gainesville. It's their medical, there's 13 hospitals, I think, or 13 colleges. It's so massive, I lose track of these numbers.
Right.
But they allow me to be a remote employee for that, which is, I think, worked out pretty well for both sides. And there's talk of having further remote employees in the future. So I guess it's really worked out pretty well so far.
That's amazing. Yeah, it's a crazy time we live in. And that's pretty cool. They work for the school. And so let's fill us in a little bit on the kind of the work that you're getting to do for the university. What sort of projects are you taking on?
Everything from, my big push these first 6 months, and this has been a exercise for me in bureaucracy more than anything else, is to kind of revamp how everything is done. The department, that's it, right? The department a couple of years ago had been one guy, and he's a great engineer, but it had been one person, and now there's 6 or 7 people that touch code and content and everything else. But the systems had never really scaled behind it. They have 800 plus sites. So
wow.
To scale that as one person until you had the stuff in place. So I've been working slowly on that, testing solutions, and still maintaining a lot of the WordPress stuff. I've been writing SOAP integrations.
Wow.
That's been at direct Oracle queries, and that's been kind of interesting into some of their databases. But it didn't get to do that at an agency. So it's been kind of fun. So I'm still doing new stuff. It's still fun.
That is pretty cool. Anything really ambitious and big on the horizon, like that you're excited about getting involved with, trying to dabble in?
I've been doing a little bit of Laravel and a lot of comparison, like Phantom.js, scheduling, automated testing. So getting into that kind of thing. I've been dabbling in Selenium a little bit, which to me is fascinating, but I have a bad feeling that's going to be a little more work than the ROI is going to dictate is viable for what we're doing. But just a lot. I mean, all of it to me is kind of cool. Any project I can stick my teeth into and just really go to town on. Our big site, 800 plus, it's a multi-site. I believe it's 26,000 database tables.
Wow. And
I don't know how many gigs for my seat just on the WordPress database, but moving that all to Bedrock, and then my roots Bedrock, a composer-based situation to make it to try to manage how we update that a little easier. And that to me is kind of fascinating because that's a hell of a workflow to switch over on something like that and not break anything, hopefully.
Wow. That's crazy. And how are you just like figuring out the right plan for all of this? You have just like a great team of support, or does this draw from things that you've had experience from in the past? Like you're architecting this a little bit. Where's your inspiration come from?
A little bit of everything, quite honest. The workflow stuff is something I have a huge interest in. So doing that, securing the sites. My official mandate was make all these sites more secure and, make sure we can do updates quicker, so on and so forth. but the workflow wouldn't allow for a lot of that. So it becomes this whole work everything in. At the same point, I had requested servers like my first 4 weeks there. I wrote this entire Laravel app, requested a server for it. It finally went live last week. So it's been a bit of an exercise in bureaucracy. And but being able to operate at that pace at first drove me crazy. But after a while, it's like, as I rebuilt their entire Vagrant box in that time. And I have a fairly sophisticated triple V type Vagrant box. So, but trying to move everybody over to that, I can't just flip the switch on people. Everything needs a work period. So it's the ability to have a great team. Some of it's been stuff I've done before, combined with a little bit of a vision of where I want to see things go, as well as it doesn't have to be done tomorrow, has really meant that we've been able to do this right without things breaking. We're not forcing anything through anywhere. Hey, look, maybe we should reinvestigate that or look at something else, and then we can go back and do it. And that's been kind of awesome.
Yeah. Colleges and universities seem today to have like some of the most impressive and exciting use cases for WordPress, just doing big, awesome things with WordPress. We've got a whole conference devoted to WordPress in higher ed right now.
WP Campus, Rachel and Jeff Stevens are all board for that and do a great job there.
Did you make it last year?
It was actually here in Sarasota. So I was there.
I should hope so. That's right. Do you think you'll attend this year in Buffalo?
This year, I will probably not do that one. There's a couple other things I want to hit this summer, and then I want to do the big high ed one is High Ed Web, which is it's not WordPress specific, but there's a lot of WordPress folks and combined with all the other CMS and stuff. But that's in Connecticut in October. So between timing of everything, pick my battles.
Yeah, you got to.
Yeah,
but WordPress in higher ed is a big thing these days. Colleges and universities are like pushing WordPress to the max and really driving a lot of the innovation that we're seeing in WordPress. At least it is, from my perspective, some of our best use cases in our agency for WordPress. Some of the coolest stuff we've gotten to do was for colleges. So
totally. And then there's folks like Jeremy Feld at Washington or Curtis Gramala at University of Mary Washington. Mm-hmm. I mean, up and down the line. Shelley Keith, who's now with Modern Tribe and helping them with stuff.
Right. Yeah, they do a lot
in that space.
Yeah,
it's pretty cool to see. That's a good mission for me. I mean, when I was with an agency, some of the sites would be pretty cool, but then there'd be sites that you'd get where, in some cases, I'd be morally opposed without going into anything beyond that. Of this isn't something I want to help, a mission I really want to help with. Right. But that's just the truth of it. I mean, that's how it is, and that's. Anything I do is I might be launching a site to help cancer patients or something. It would be hard for me to ever find an objection to any of the content or any of the features I'm building or anything like that.
Exactly. Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Huh. I can't really think of too many other industries that are just pushing the limits to this degree that like the universities are right now. It's impressive.
I don't know if user-wise, maybe not, but there's still a lot of, Disney and some of what they do, and some of the other big ones. But it's the product space that is still pushing so much.
Yeah.
Look at Gravity Forms and Caldera Forms and what Josh is doing, and so many of these other folks, Ingot and Syed and all his work down there. They're all pushing it forward at quite a pace, just in. I won't say silos, but in different verticals that just help keep things a little more spread out.
Yeah. This is an interesting time with lots of innovation. Have you ever had many opportunities to get involved in core development?
I finally did my first core code this last cycle, this 4.7 cycle. It's one of those things that every time I step into it, I'm like, hey, I'll work on this. And hey, oh, wait, I got to do something else. And it just never really
it takes a time investment. It really does.
Well, it's funny. I've got a lot more lines of code in things like Jetpack, a lot of lines of code in AMP. I've got a lot of credits in Gravity Forms. So I'm giving back to all sorts of little projects and side projects. I shouldn't say little. Some of these are huge projects. But all these side projects. I've done all kinds of things with core, but I've just never gotten around to writing anything for it. Excuse me. So yeah, keep trying.
What do you think about this new development release cycle that we're trying out here, Matt's pushing for this year?
Until we release anything, I'm gonna save my judgment. It might be perfect. It might not be. You know, the last time I think the iterative updates were cool, but it seemed to, I don't know if anger is the right word, but it seemed to upset a lot of the base because things weren't really getting pushed through that couldn't be fixed in a certain amount of time. Sure. Some of the UI updates they want to do this year. So I think it has a lot of potential if they can push through some of the bigger changes. I think people are going to love it. If it comes out and it turns out to be just another iterative release, but now it's a year apart, I think that could cause some problems.
True. Yeah. For everything, evidence indicates now that there are some pretty big, ambitious discussions at least taking place.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of conversations, a lot of new wireframes and prototypes and proofs of concept. Yeah, we're getting everything now. But some big things are being discussed, and we could see some interesting changes before too long.
With companies like Medium in such trouble, it's interesting to see some of the front end, and I'm wondering how they'll be able to capitalize on that because it's really interesting. But also that front end editing, it'll be curious to see the interaction between the companies and who uses it and where, how much of it winds up in core versus, now that everything can be headless so easily. It's going to be really interesting to see where that all goes.
Yeah, I think so. I'm not sure that I know of much that has a precedence for this. It feels like WordPress is kind of going into territory. I mean, who can look back and say, oh, this is just the roadmap. This is where you're going to go next.
Hopefully they still won't support PHP 5.2 with it. There's the one I want to see updated, but no, I mean, that's just, exactly. That's exactly it. They really are going new territory. And hopefully that really does well.
When somebody reaches out to you and says, hey, Chris, I just want to talk about security. Can you be on a panel about security? Let's talk WordPress security. How do you feel about that? Are you in the position where you're like, heck yeah, that's my thing, let's do it? Or are you like, yeah, more security?
It depends. A little bit of both sometimes. I really enjoy, one of the criticisms I got when I did the plugin is it's not a firewall and stuff like that. It's like, no, I'm not trying it to be. And that's what Tony does really well at Tony Perez and security.
Right.
I'm not trying to do that kind of security. I'm more interested in like what people do. Why were you hacked? Well, you dummy, you used a stupid password or you did something stupid. But stopping that I always find fascinating. In London, WordCamp London this week and next week, but next weekend, I'm giving a talk on practical encryption. So it's encrypting things like your emails, your web connection, going outside of WordPress and outside of the stuff that we normally talk about for the purpose of it's encrypting the person. It's dealing with more of the privacy and that type of issue than it is the security in the traditional sense we think of it with WordPress. And that I find fascinating. I spoke, when was it? Last week? A week ago? In a meetup in Fort Myers on like introduction to security and introducing a lot of those types of things. And I could talk on that all day. But you start to get into crypto and stuff. I find crypto fascinating. Blowfish, the SHA-1 was finally cracked and all this and that. But not at the same applicable level as I do why somebody would use it.
Sure. Do you think there's anything that core teams should be taking seriously, or that, if there's a discussion about improving the security aspect of core WordPress, how do you feel about that conversation? Should it move a little faster, or is there things that you would add to the conversation? Do you ever get involved in it?
I poke my head in here and there. Most of it, I'm a big time lurker with a lot of that stuff, to be honest with you. It's funny because I think just about every time I come up with something I'd like to do a core proposal on, whether it be two-factor or whatever feature I had been working on when I was doing the plugin, I can almost guarantee that somebody else is going to put one in within the next 3 weeks. The last big one I had really started writing up was two-factor, and that's when George started the beta plugin like a week or two later, which is great. It means I'm on the right page. Frankly, security scares me. There's a fine line between security and usability, right? You cross that line, you can't use the thing. The most secure thing is it doesn't exist. I mean, it's offline. But so as far as it moving too fast, I don't necessarily think it is really moving too fast or too slow. There's always an interest and there's always people pushing something forward. Not everything's accepted. There's a good thing, a little bit of a WP drama last week on timing of a certain features proposal. But it's still being proposed and it's still being talked about. And at some point, it will still move forward. And that's what needs to happen. As long as it keeps going in that direction. You got great people like Aaron in charge of, somebody's actually appointed to watch over it now. That's a great step.
True. Yeah. Yeah, that's absolutely true. And it seems like we got a lot of interesting things coming, but Aaron's great person to be responsible for this new role, I think.
Yeah, very much so. And it's better than what a lot of projects do. A lot of projects don't have anybody dedicated. So that we finally put somebody in there with Nikolai first and now Aaron, that's great. That's where we need to be moving. And that's what they keep doing. So I got no complaints. But, we can always nitpick our own little personal thing, right? But that's our own personal thing. And you have to step back and see the bigger picture. So they seem to be doing very well at that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty cool. So, what are you still maintain some plugins on the side a little bit? Is that something that you still do, like maintain some personal projects a little bit?
The biggest one I'm maintaining right now it's called Primary Vagrant. It's kind of like a triple V alternative, variant vagrants. Triple V originally, I didn't like it all in Bash because I'm not as good at Bash as I am at some other things. Plus, I didn't like it was all Apache or it was all Nginx. I needed to have Apache and some other things. So basically, I rewrote Triple V. I bet that project's probably 3 or 4 years old now, and it's pretty darn mature. But most of my personal project time goes back into that.
Really? Wow. Okay. And that's something that's got its own community of users too?
It's not that big, but it's got a few hundred forks. It's got, I mean, I get enough hate mail for it when something breaks. So it's got people paying attention, which is great. I'm not as interested sometimes in that as I was in previous things about making it something that's stupidly successful, but it's just tools I keep adding so it works for me. And if somebody else uses them, great.
Sure. Sure. Who if there's somebody out there who's like a Vagrant user, what's an example of somebody who might want to take a look at it?
If you're using Triple V and you're frustrated with it and you want to contribute to something else or whatever reason you like getting into Vagrant, don't want to make the Docker switch yet. Truthfully, it'll probably be rewritten in Docker one of these days. Nice to have 2 projects. But yeah, I mean, it's out there. You can link to it from my own site, chriswiegman.com. But it's very feature, a little bit more features in some areas than Triple V. It's got, and a little bit less than others. It's got a site creator. It's got all that other jazz in it, with a little bit more custom, a little bit easier to customize. That's the word I'm looking for, at least for the way I use it.
Sure. Yeah, that's pretty cool. And so you've got your colleagues using that.
Yep, we forked it for the department there, which they had a lot of things like Oracle support and IBM DB2.
Oh man,
yeah,
that just sounds so much fun.
we have to integrate that with some PHP and WordPress, but so I have to add all those features to it. I was sure as heck wasn't pushing those public because God help me if somebody tries to use it. Who knows what's going to happen? But no, it's there. It's working pretty well for them now. Wow,
impressive. I bet that's a cool project. I'm gonna have to take a look at that. So, what are some of the things you like to do for fun, Chris?
Fun? Wait, what? Huh?
Besides get up in the air now and then.
I jumped out on an airplane last weekend. But trying to get back into skydiving, trying to get back into I'd love to take one flight student, and just yesterday was today. What's today? The 6th. This coming weekend is my 6 months at University of Florida, and I have to be there 6 months before I can start accruing vacation and all the rules for the remote employee. So once I get through all that paperwork to switch me over to a permanent employee, I'm looking forward to having some free time to get back into flying and just reading more, and probably blog more than code, just writing about stuff. I miss writing. I haven't done a lot of it at all lately.
Yeah. Ugh. Yeah. They're right. One of those things.
We can't all be a Tom McFarlane, I guess.
No, we can't. Shoot. The blog is like, I always think of it as the new gym. Like, we all feel like we gotta get back to the blog.
The guys that do it daily, Tom, Curtis, McHale, Tom McFarlane, and there's a few others. It's just, they're like my role models this last year. I want to get back to that point. It's been a while.
Yeah. That is no small feat.
Very true.
But I hope you do, because you've got some good material. Always a good blog post on chriswiegman.com.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah. So what does the rest of your year look like? Your calendar? Where might someone like myself bump into you?
This month's probably my biggest or my busiest. I was in St. Pete for a meetup last week, speaking a meetup in Fort Myers the week before. Next week's WordCamp London. The following week, I'm speaking WordCamp Miami. I'm going to try to get to WordCamp Austin. That's something I really don't want to miss, as well as High Ed Web, but those are both October, so we'll see there. And probably WordCamp US, and then take it easy this summer and get some flight currency and actually get back in the air.
There you go. Yeah, that's pretty cool. How does that work if you are I don't know anything about flying? You rent a plane or something?
Yeah, probably, or work out something with somebody I meet out there to use it for a few hours. I say about an hour for every year you are away to get current again. Yeah. And I've got quite a bit of time, so it shouldn't be too big a deal. You have to renew your CFI, your flight instructor rating, every 2 years. So I paid for something. I got one of those deals like 12 years ago where buy it once and just do it every 2 years for free. So that's been easy. It's just an online course. But getting up in the air again will be the big one. It'll probably take about 8 to 10 hours at least before I can be hireable and get somebody to pay me to do it on the weekends. Otherwise, it gets really expensive. It gets hard to justify.
Oh, I can imagine. Yeah. So I've only got a couple more minutes here, and I want to be respectful of your time. So just wrapping things up a little bit. What advice do you have for developers? So those of us pushing out products, plugins, premium plugins, free plugins, releasing them to the world. What kind of advice do you have for us to consider for general security, especially those of us doing it for the first time?
For general security, like in your code security, pay attention
from a development perspective.
Pay attention to it. That's actually a talk I've given at, I think that was the talk I gave at WordCamp US the first year, and I've given the talk on specifically developer security at a couple places. Mostly I'm just looking at the code and the mistakes people make, but paying attention is the biggest thing, and using things like code linters. PHP Code Sniffer with WordPress coding standards will really go a long way to clean up your code as far as missing, escaped, strings, whatever it might be, standardization and validation.
Okay. Yep. Great. That's awesome. Do you have any good recommendations for guests that I might invite on the show in the future?
Good recommendations for guests. If you want to go with the higher end theme, I'd really suggest talking to Jeff Stevens out of UF or Shelly Keith out of Modern Tribe.
All right.
Both of which I think are pretty awesome. And then there's Curtis Grimala out of University of Mary Washington, who both he's their lead developer and a really great dev. So any of the three of them, I bet you would make really good candidates for a higher ed centric show. That seems to be what we talked about a lot tonight. Anyway.
Yeah. Well, it's cool stuff happening there, as we discussed. So that's pretty much our time here. Chris, it's been an awesome discussion. I'm really grateful that you took time out of your evening after work to chat with me. So thanks a ton.
Thank you for having me. It's been fun. It's been a while since I've done many of these. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And I look forward to hanging out with you just a couple weeks in Miami.
Definitely. Looking forward to it. Hopefully we'll catch some of the other folks who are listening.
Yeah, definitely. It's going to be fun. All right, my man. You have a good rest of your evening, and we'll talk in a couple weeks.
Thanks, Kyle. You too.